Hello every pony, this is Visual Pony once again with the introduction to Chapter 6 of Children of the Night. Here I give you the swift warning that this is once again a tortured chapter. This is a war story, a sad war story, in which prisoners naturally are hurt and tortured. If you cannot bear this, don't listen to my story. At least not to this one. The others on my channel, you're free to listen to them. But if you can't bear ponies being hurt, then don't listen to this story. It is a fair warning, and enjoy. Or, let me know what you think about this chapter down in the comments. If you like to, subscribe. Children of the Night, Chapter 6. Joy and Torture. Twilight was led back into her cell by several changeling guards. Apparently the lead ring around her horn that kept her from gathering arcane energy was not enough of a safety measure for them. The dark corridors through which they led her were part of the dungeons. Before all this she had never been down here. There had been just no reason to be here. Equestria was such a peaceful place that it rarely came to any imprisonment. As Princess Celestia's student, she wouldn't have had anything to do with potential criminals. The thought of her mentor gave Twilight another sting in her heart. Was the princess all right, or was she kept in one of those cells that she was passing right now? Her head fell even more at these gloomy thoughts. Cadence and her had been captured, that much she knew for sure. So their invaders had managed to at least capture 2/4 of Equestria's royalty. She just hoped that Luna and Celestia were all right. If they weren't, then there was no hope for her or the rest of the elements of harmony. If those doors just had windows, then Twilight would have been able to peer in and confirm if some pony she knew was in there. On the other hoof, what good would it have been? They all were prisoners in the end, and as far as she knew, were ever only brought outside their cells one by one, always guarded by several changelings. As the group reached Twilight's cell and she trotted in crestfallen, a cheerful voice greeted her, and Twilight looked up in shock. Her cell had been empty when she left it, and now there was Pinkie Pie? Hi, Twilight. I've been waiting for you since these black ponies told me you'd be need cheering up, and that's what I do best. Cheer up my friends. More than the fact that they had actually put her into a cell with another element of harmony, was it the fact that Pinkie was so cheery, even though she was chained to the wall, and her head was kept in place by a metal band. Usually there was nothing more uncomfortable for Pinkie Pie than to stay still, but the prospect of a down-feeling friend that needed cheering up seemingly blotted out all uncomfortable feelings. Pinkie wouldn't be able to help her though, cause her captors chained her to the wall opposite Pinkie with all force spread. What she thought of as strange, however, was that the changelings who had escorted her here placed a metal ring around her stomach that looked very strange indeed. It had carvings in it that surely were magical. Even so, she could not gather any magical energy into her horn. She could still feel it. The magical energy that emanated from it was cold, and it felt more than dangerous. Twilight tried to resist as they closed the lock on it, but her hooves had already been bound, so she could do nothing more than to shake her hips to make it harder for them. This, however, seemed to excite one of them, since he couldn't take his eyes off her plot. Noticing this, Twilight ceased her struggling, not wanting to receive the same treatment as Cadence earlier. Pinkie was, while the changelings bound her up, shouting at them furiously, which was very out of character for her. She couldn't bear to see one of her friends being forced into something that was obviously no fun for her, but she couldn't stop them. Thinking she'd better be strong for her friend, bound on the opposite side of the room. She didn't like the expression of defeat on Twilight's face, so she decided to do her best to turn that sad frown upside down. So, Twilight, wanna play I see something that you don't? I'd really like to play pin the tail on the pony, but I can't move, so that would be impossible. So I thought we'd better play something that doesn't need so much moving, and so I thought it would be a good idea to play this instead, cause we only need to move our eyes for this, and... Twilight listened to her pink friend's ramblings about games, sighing. She wanted to think about things. There were so many things she needed to think of, especially the fate of her brother and the other 2 princesses. A plan to escape would also be a great idea. Anything but Pinkie's illogical ramblings when they were in a situation where they needed to stay focused. Pinkie continued to state reasons why they should play a game, or tell jokes instead of listening to Twilight. Pinkie! Oh, and... Yes, Twilight? What's up? This isn't the time to play games. We need to get out of here somehow. Oh, yeah, I'd really like to go back to Ponyville. This place is no fun at all. That's so not what I meant, but okay, I can work with that. Any intuition from that Pinkie sense of yours, or any idea how to get out of these chains? My Pinkie sense is not for escaping really scary no fun dungeons, duh, but getting out of these chains? You mean like this? With this, Pinkie Pie started to wiggle her front and hind legs out of the bindings that held her up to the wall, leaving Twilight stunned. She had always known Pinkie Pie was odd, to say the least, but this was too much. "Pinkie, you could have escaped those all along, and you didn't? Well, duh! If I had done this before, I would have missed you being brought here." Twilight's muzzle dropped. Shaking her head, she addressed Pinkie again. "Pinkie, can you get me out of them as well if you can?" "Okie dokie dokie." The pink party pony approached Twilight's chains and stomped on her bindings a few times, opening them in the progress. As Twilight finally stood on all four legs again, she sighed in relief. The only things she was unable to remove were her silencer and the magical band around her midriff. Both objects were held in place by a spell, and without being able to use her own magic, she would have to find another spellcaster to do it for her, but at least she could move freely again. Even Pinkie's attempts to make her smile were not so annoying now. Sure, their captors would try to punish them for breaking their chains, but she planned to make them pay for the try, and Cadison's treatment earlier. Pinkie had just struck an especially funny joke as Twilight broke out in a fit of laughter despite of herself, when all the laughter left her and she stumbled to the ground, clutching her side. A sharp pain ran through her, as if she had been stabbed, and sure enough, as she looked down herself, a trickle of blood ran down from under the magical band around her. Pinkie was worried when Twilight collapsed on her side, clutching the place where blood was now trickling down her body. Pinkie examined the place that was bleeding, having some experience with wounds ever since she had started to look after the cake's babies. She pressed down Twilight's flesh a bit to take a look under the metal band around her friend's body, and there was a small, not too long, but apparently very sharp blade that dug into Twilight's body. "Pinkie, be careful, it hurts." "Oh, I'm so sorry, Twilight." Pinkie let go of Twilight again. Managing a little smile, Twilight tried to get up to her hoofs again, but once again got struck by a sharp pain, and toppled to the floor again. This one was on the exact opposite side from where the first one had been. Right now it became painful for her to just breathe. The wounds didn't feel too deep or wide, but they were definitely bleeding, and whatever stung her did not pull back again, so each breath made her flesh rub against the blades. Pinkie was now even more worried about her friend. Just as she had tried to get up, another blade seemed to have struck her. What was this awful thing that the changelings had wrapped around her friend? As she sat there, trying to comfort her the heavily breathing Twilight, a horrible thought came into her mind. "Twilight, I know this is really unusual for me, and I really hate to say it, but don't smile." "Why shouldn't I, Pinkie? It hurts bad, but it surely has—" But then she understood what Pinkie was saying. Why hadn't she noticed this? Every time she showed any kind of happiness, she was stabbed with a magical blade? She decided on that term, since she herself could not see what had wounded her. Most likely they were enchanted to make the place they hit even more sensible. She knew of those spells, but using them for something like this seemed more than evil. Still, she had to test her theory. It could still be that they just stabbed her in uneven intervals. Taking a deep breath, she mustered a smile and immediately felt the pain again, stabbing her in the back this time. Pinkie didn't know what to do. Twilight was hurt in 3 different places, and she couldn't even help her friend. What was worse for her was that her friend being hurt seemed to be her fault. She had made Twilight smile and laugh, and that horrible thing seemingly reacted to that, and then hurt her friend. As much as she wanted to make Twilight smile, that would only result in her getting hurt even more, and that was nowhere on her list of fun things to do. She came to the conclusion that, even if Twilight didn't smile, that thing could also be set off by her laughter or smiling. It was no good. Pinkie just couldn't think of anything to do. Twilight, now bleeding from 3 shallow wounds that made it painful for her to breathe, and the only thing Pinkie could think of was placing Twilight's head on her lap, stroking her mane with one hoof. Fun would hurt her friend, so it was for the best not to have fun. Soon Twilight's breathing became more relaxed, and Pinkie noticed that her friend had gone to sleep. She had not protested once when she had treated her like one of the cake's foals that was crying, but had accepted the little relief that she could provide. Inside Pinkie welled up a feeling that she had never felt before. She had felt anger and even rage before, when her friends had avoided her only so she wouldn't notice them prepare a party for her. But this was something different. This was hatred. "I hate them. They hurt my friend," Pinkie muttered to herself, and she hadn't even finished her sentence yet. Her usually fluffy mane deflated, her expression becoming rather grim. She would get them for this. They had hurt Twilight and used her as a tool to do so. Pinkie cried as she saw it in her inner eye. They must be laughing their heads off now that she, the party thrower extraordinaire, hurt her friend with the thing she did best, making ponies smile. A smile sneaked its way into her face when she imagined how she would make them pay for this. How good it would feel to show them that it was a bad idea to get on the bad side of Pinkemine Diana Pie. Okay, every pony, this was chapter 6, the newest up to date. I will most likely write more, maybe in 2 days, because tomorrow I will be out with my family. If this chapter seems a little rushed, and there are maybe some lulls or derps of my tongue, which I didn't cut out or didn't redo, please excuse me, because until recently my dad sat right next to me and he does not really agree me being a brony. I don't really care about that, but it still really makes me nervous when I have someone sitting right next to me, giving me a really disapproving glare each time the word pony falls. And you can imagine how often that happens in a My Little Pony fanfiction. Okay, that's it. Sincerely yours, Visual Pony.